Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
737 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman. Mitt Romney got a big foreign policy speech today. One of his advisors on such things is Ambassador John Bolton, former UN ambassador. He's on the phone right now. Mr. Ambassador, I look at you as a guy who knows what it is to be a UN ambassador, and I'm sure that when you were UN ambassador, you occasionally got security briefings. Can you imagine being as far out of the loop on what was going on as UN Ambassador Susan Rice was about Libya?
Well, I think she did probably what she was told to do by the White House, which is go out, here's the information we have, here's the line we want you to follow. And I think that's what she did. I think it was ideologically convenient for President Obama, for Susan Rice to be saying that, because they didn't want to admit that the war on terror, in fact, is not over, that Al-Qaeda in various manifestations is still very much a worldwide threat, and that, sweetness and light had not exactly broken out in Libya. Now, the reality is to the contrary, and obviously in due course, reality overwhelmed their explanation. But I agree in the sense I don't think she was out there on a rogue operation. I think she was doing exactly what the White House wanted.
Well, now, she's come out and said, I was just going with what the intelligence community told me. Nothing more, nothing less.
Right. Well, that's the latest Obama administration spin on this, and they have found a conversation or two apparently intercepted in the immediate aftermath of the attack on Benghazi that tends to support that. Now, that's one or two isolated pieces of information in a flood of other information that all concludes and leads to the analysis that it was a well-planned, well-executed terrorist attack. And it's that's politically inconvenient for the Obama administration. Honestly, I wondered when I saw Susan Rice on all those morning talk shows a couple Sundays ago, where's Hillary Clinton?
Mm-hmm.
It's her responsibility, not Susan Rice's.
Maybe they couldn't get Hillary to go out and say the things they wanted them to say.
Right,
my opinion, just say it.
Could well be. It's a very interesting question.
All right, so here's I've been told, and you tell me what you know about this, because you've actually received these kind of briefings. I wouldn't know how it works, but I've been told that when the intelligence community has to brief people who are non-operational, that they have to freeze that information about 24 hours before it's delivered, and it has to be vetted up and down the chain 2 or 3 times, massaged and sanitized, so that, because they assume that if it goes to the Hill or it goes to people who are non-operational, that it's going to end up in the media. Is that true?
Well, it depends on what it is. It depends on what it's being used for. There are a lot of different circumstances for different kinds of information. But what I would say in this case is obviously, given that 4 Americans were killed, there was enormous priority given to acquiring information, cutting through the fog of all the stuff that comes in and trying to get to the hard information and then making it usable. So from the perspective of what the Obama administration was trying to do, I think they were in a panic that if the full story got out, they would be exposed for having ignored the threat, having not taken adequate security precautions. And I think that's likely what we're going to see here, and in fact what additional information since September the 11th has tended to demonstrate.
We're talking with John Bolton, former UN ambassador during the Bush administration. All right, so and the reporting is that there were requests from Benghazi for additional security, and those requests were denied. That's not been confirmed yet by anybody in the administration, but that has been reported. Do you have any idea as to why they would deny such a request?
No, and I think that's one of the things that may come out at the hearing in the House of Representatives that will take place, I think, this Wednesday. They've subpoenaed several of the security officials from our embassy in Tripoli and the consulate in Benghazi. One explanation is that the administration at the highest levels just thought everything was fine. If the war on terror is over, what could possibly go wrong? It could be that it's budget cuts. It could be they were spending money on other things and weren't giving adequate resources for security around the world. I think either of those explanations would be very troubling for the administration, which is one reason why the State Department's own review panel won't be reporting for another 60 days. How convenient.
All right, so Governor Mitt Romney gives his big speech today on foreign policy at VMI. Do you have any indication of where he will be going with this speech, and what do you hope he hits on?
Well, I think what he's doing is pointing out the collapse of the Obama administration's foreign policy, as sadly demonstrated by the murder of the 4 Americans in Libya on September the 11th, and the attacks on our embassy compounds in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Yemen, and elsewhere. So that what he's going to try and show is that the whole administration approach, the naivete about the Arab Spring, the unwillingness to protect American interest around the world, the inability to exercise leadership, hurts American interest, and it ties in very directly with the domestic economy. If we don't have a strong American presence internationally, we're not going to have sustained prosperity here at home.
Oh, but you got to walk a delicate line in doing that, because especially if you're going to criticize the Obama administration for their handling of the situation in Libya, because it's still sort of a hot situation. Don't you have to be careful there?
Well, I think you've got to comment on what's going on in the world. And look, I think our embassies throughout the Middle East are at risk of more assaults, more potential hostage situations like we saw in Tehran in 1979. You know, that was a bad year. The embassy in Pakistan was burned. Our ambassador in Afghanistan was assassinated. And it all looked disturbingly for the past month, a lot like what's going on now. I honestly think that a candidate for president has to speak to the issues that are in front of the people, and obviously he wants to be prudent, and I'm sure he will be, but you can't ignore this kind of failure when the prospect is, if Obama wins, you get 4 more years of it.
Ambassador John Bolton, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thanks so much. Glad to do it.
Thank you for coming on.